The radar warning receiver in the cockpit of the F-15E Strike Eagle hit a high-pitched tone as the aircraft cleared the 12,000-foot ridgeline of the Zagros Mountains. The pilot jammed the throttles into full afterburner. The twin Pratt & Whitney F100-PW-229 engines dumped raw fuel into the exhaust, generating 58,000 pounds of thrust. The Strike Eagle surged forward at Mach 1.2. It wasn't enough. The Iranian Sayad-2 surface-to-air missile closed the distance in seconds. Its semi-active radar seeker had locked onto the F-15E the moment the afterburners lit. The missile detonated its 440-pound fragmentation warhead 12 feet from the port engine nozzle. The blast ripped through the engine bay. Shrapnel severed the primary hydraulic lines, punctured the left fuel cell, and shredded the vertical stabilizer. In the cockpit, the master caution panel erupted, every warning light firing at once. The flight control system failed. The aircraft rolled hard left, uncontrollable. Eject, eject, eject! The Aces II ejection seats fired their rocket motors, punching the pilot and weapon systems officer into the cold air at 600 miles per hour. The wind blast cracked their visors and tore their flight suits. But the parachutes deployed, two white canopies blooming against the brown Zagros mountainside. Below them, the $84 million F-15E Strike Eagle tumbled into a flat spin, impacting the rocky Khuzestan slope and erupting into a 300-yard fireball of JP-8 fuel. The black smoke column rose 5,000 feet, visible to every Iranian patrol within 30 miles. Two Americans, alone, deep inside Iran. The pilot landed hard on the slope, rolling 30 feet before his chute collapsed against a boulder. He checked himself. Nothing broken. He gathered the chute, pulled out his PRC-149 survival radio, and activated the GPS beacon. The signal pulsed upward to a satellite 22,000 miles above. The WSO landed 2 miles north on a steeper ridgeline. His landing was worse. His left ankle buckled on impact. He tried the radio. Static. The beacon switch was cracked from the ejection force. He was invisible. The clock started ticking. 90 miles away, two HH-60G Pavehawk helicopters, call sign Jolly 51 and Jolly 52, dropped to 50 feet above the desert floor, rotors kicking up a continuous dust trail as they pushed toward the beacon. Overhead, two A-10C Warthogs, Hog 11 and Hog 12, scanned through lightning targeting pods, hunting for Iranian forces converging on the crash site. 400 miles south, the pilot's GPS signal was received aboard the USS Gerald R. Ford. That signal triggered a chain reaction that would ultimately unleash the full weight of the American military on Iran. But first, they had to reach the pilot, and the WSO's beacon had gone silent. Jolly 51 slowed to a hover near the pilot's coordinates. The pararescuemen spotted him crouched behind a limestone outcrop, signaling with an infrared strobe. Then the hillside erupted. IRGC ground forces opened fire from limestone caves 400 meters up the slope. RPG-7 rockets streaked toward the helicopters, white smoke trails cutting the morning air. ZU-23-2 twin-barrel 23mm anti-aircraft cannons hammered the airspace, each gun pumping 800 rounds per minute of high-explosive incendiary ammunition into the kill zone. Jolly 51 took a direct hit to the tail boom. The round severed the tail rotor drive shaft. The helicopter instantly began spinning, torque from the main rotor now unopposed. Black smoke from the damaged gearbox choked the engine intakes. The door gunners hammered back with GAU 18/8.50 caliber machine guns, tracers drawing orange lines into the cave mouths. The Iranians fought smart, using the rugged terrain to stay in blind spots, forcing the Americans lower and slower into the teeth of the anti-aircraft fire. They were trading infantry units for a chance to down a helicopter, and they refused to yield. Hog 11 rolled into a 30-degree dive. The GAU-8/A Avenger 30mm cannon spun to 3,900 rounds per minute. The sound hit the ground a full second after impact, a deep, ripping BRRRT that shook the valley. Depleted uranium rounds struck the cave entrances at 3,400 feet per second, pulverizing rock and the RPG teams behind them. Hog 12 released 4 GBU-12 Paveway 2 500-pound laser-guided bombs onto the Iranian technicals. The explosions tossed 3-ton trucks 50 feet into the air. The team pulled the pilot into the vibrating cabin of Jolly 51, alive, bleeding from a gash above his eye, but alive. The WSO signal? Dead. No beacon, no radio, nothing. As both Pavehawks turned south, IRGC forces unmasked hidden ZU-23-2 cannons on the reverse slopes, positions that hadn't fired during the first ambush. They'd been waiting for the helicopters to show their bellies. 23mm rounds slammed into Jolly 51's underside. 2 crew members were hit with shrapnel. The PJ medic applied tourniquets, hands slick with blood. From the ridgelines, 2 9K38 Igla-S shoulder-fired missiles launched. The first was decoyed by the AN/ALQ-144 countermeasures. The second detonated near Jolly 52's engine intake, shattering the compressor blades spinning at 30,000 revolutions per minute. The pilot auto-rotated on one engine. Both helicopters damaged, 2 Americans wounded, and the WSO still out there, alone on that mountain with Iranian patrols closing in. That thought would hang over everything that followed. In the CIC aboard the Ford, the strike group commander watched the rescue footage in silence. He picked up the phone and said 5 words: launch the full strike package. On the 4.5-acre flight deck, the electromagnetic aircraft launch system fired a pulse of energy that accelerated a 66,000-pound FA-18E Super Hornet to 150 miles per hour in under 300 feet. The launch cycle was relentless. Every 45 seconds, another jet slung into the sky. Super Hornets, Growlers, E-2D Hawkeyes climbing to 25,000 feet with 350-mile radar coverage. 38 aircraft launched in 1 hour. The flight deck smelled of jet exhaust and hydraulic fluid. Deck crews in color-coded jerseys sprinted between aircraft. Yellow shirts directing traffic, red shirts loading ordnance, purple shirts pumping 800 gallons of JP5 per aircraft. It was controlled chaos. It was the most efficient killing machine ever built, and it was heading north. While the Ford's air wing moved toward Iran, the USS Boxer took station in the Strait of Hormuz, and Iran responded with the weapon it had practiced for decades: the Swarm. 40 fiberglass fast attack craft armed with 20mm cannons and 107mm rockets launched from the coves of Keshem Island at 50 knots, weaving erratic patterns designed to confuse targeting systems. 2 AV-8B Harriers rolled off the Boxer's deck and dropped to 200 feet, strafing the lead boats with GAU-12/U-25mm cannons. Fiberglass hulls disintegrated. Mark 38 Mod 2 gun systems tracked individual boats with computer precision, firing 3-round bursts that killed engines dead. When a rocket was launched at the hull, the RIM-116 rolling airframe missile, spinning at 10 revolutions per second, infrared seeker locked, obliterated it 200 yards from the ship. 23 boats sunk or disabled in 8 minutes. The survivors ran for the coast. But the Swarm was a distraction. Iran's real punch came from the caves. Mobile launchers hidden in limestone sea caves fired 4 Nor anti-ship missiles, sea skimming at 15 feet altitude, Mach 0.9, 670 miles per hour. The AN/SLQ-32 electronic warfare suite jammed 2. RAM killed the third at 1,200 yards. The fourth performed the high-G terminal pop-up, climbing the 500 feet before diving vertically at the deck. The Phalanx CIWS, last line of defense, spun the Vulcan cannon to 4,500 rounds per minute. Tungsten rounds shredded the Nor 80 yards from the ship. The shockwave rattled every window on the bridge. The Strait of Hormuz had become the most dangerous water on Earth, and 400 miles north, the WSO was still missing. IRGC Quds Force was closing in. The EA-18G Growler, Spartan 21, detected the chirp of an Iranian S-300 PMU-2 long-range radar 80 miles inland. The pilot released an AGM-88 EA-ARGM at 1,500 miles per hour. The Iranian operator shut down the transmitter to hide. Too late. The AARGM switched to GPS and millimeter wave seeker. It remembered the coordinates. The 150-pound warhead vaporized the radar trailer and crew. A second AARGM killed the engagement radar 8 seconds later. Iran's long-range eyes blinded. 2 F-35C Lightning IIs opened internal bays and released 16 GBU 53/B Stormbreaker bombs, tri-mode seekers hunting mobile launchers under camouflage. 3 Noor and College FARS batteries hit simultaneously. Rocket motors cooked off, sending white-hot plumes spinning into IRGC positions. Then the B-1Bs arrived. 4 Lancers from RAF Fairford released 96 AGM-158 BJASS MER cruise missiles. The weapons dropped to 20 feet above the water at 600 miles per hour, exhaust leaving spray trails on the surface. In the final 3 seconds, they popped up and dove vertically into coastal bunkers. Each 1,000-pound penetrator warhead punched through 20 feet of concrete before detonating. The coastline lit up for 40 miles. In the mountains, the WSO heard the distant rumble. He didn't know what was happening. He only knew America was still fighting. Iran launched 60 Shahed 136 suicide drones, lawnmower engines 115 miles per hour. The Ford used Phalanx, 4,500 rounds per minute of tungsten shredding drones in midair. Fuel tanks popped in small orange flashes against the gray sky, like fireworks, deadly fireworks. Simultaneously, RIM-162 evolved Sea Sparrow missiles left the Mark 41 vertical launch system cells with a roar of white smoke, performing high-G turns to intercept Iranian cruise missiles fired from deeper inland. Each intercept was a catastrophic kinetic event, missiles colliding at combined closure speeds over 4,000 miles per hour. The detonation flashes were visible from the flight deck. 47 drones and 8 cruise missiles destroyed. Not a single weapon touched the Ford. Tehran scrambled its last fighters, 6 F-14AM Tomcats and 4 MiG-29A Fulcrums. The F-35Cs detected them from 150 miles with AN/APG-81 AESA radar. The Growlers jammed every Iranian frequency. The pilots were flying blind. AIM-120DAM RAAMs, Mach 4, 3,000 miles per hour, destroyed 4 jets in the first 60 seconds. The airframes disintegrated into thousands of fragments. The pilots never saw their attackers. One MiG-29 pilot, experienced, brave, tried to close for a gun kill, diving for the deck. A Super Hornet pilot used the joint helmet-mounted cueing system. He looked at the MiG and fired. The AIM-9X Sidewinder performed a 60G turn on its thrust vectoring motor, pulling a 180-degree arc directly into the cockpit at Mach 2.5. 10 fighters launched. all 10 destroyed in 12 minutes. The Iranian Air Force ceased to exist. 2 Alvand-class frigates tried to escape Bandar Abbas. F-A-18Es launched AGM-84D harpoons, sea skimming at 15 feet, 530 miles per hour. The first struck the frigate's waterline. The 488-pound warhead detonated inside the magazine. The ship ripped in half, sank in 3 minutes. The second harpoon hit the fuel pier. 3 50,000-gallon tanks ruptured. The fireball rose 800 feet. Secondary explosions destroyed 3 more patrol boats and the base's fueling infrastructure. Bandar Abbas was burning. Under a sandstorm, Iranian dhows dropped EM-52 rocket-rising mines into the shipping channels. One detonated 50 feet from the Boxer, the shockwave knocking out secondary comms. The strait was mined. Iran broadcast propaganda claiming victory. But 400 miles north, something more important was happening. For 48 hours, the WSO had survived alone in the Zagros Mountains. He'd hiked a 7,000-foot ridgeline in the dark, navigating by stars and his wrist compass. During daylight, he wedged himself into a narrow rock crevice, barely wide enough for his shoulders, covering the opening with his parachute to break his silhouette. Below, IRGC patrols and Bakhtiari nomadic tribesmen, hunters who knew every trail in these mountains, scoured the valleys with dogs and thermal optics. The WSO had managed to fix his beacon with the wire from his survival kit. He sent 3-second bursts every 4 hours, just long enough for satellites to grab the signal, too short for Iranian direction-finding equipment to triangulate. Sprained ankle, no water for 36 hours, 6 hours of battery remaining. His lips were cracked, his hands were shaking, but he kept transmitting. But America hadn't forgotten him. A massive recovery force, 155 aircraft, hundreds of operators, a CIA deception campaign was closing in. DEVGRU inserted via MH-6 Little Birds onto an abandoned airstrip near Shereza. The CIA convinced the IRGC the rescue was happening 60 miles from his actual position. At 03:17 hours on April 5th, the team reached the crevice. The team leader keyed his radio. Precious cargo secured, alive, mobile, extract in 10. A 10 Warthogs strafed the surrounding ridgelines as the HH-60W lifted off. 22 minutes later, friendly airspace. When the WSO landed at Al Dhafra Air Base, the pilot, his crewmate, the man he'd flown 1,000 hours beside, was standing on the tarmac. No words exchanged, just a handshake that said everything. In 72 hours, the most complex combat rescue since Vietnam. Iran's coastal missile network destroyed. 2 frigates sunk. 10 fighters shot down. The Iranian Air Force eliminated. Bandar Abbas burning. The cost? $184 million F-15E. 2 helicopters damaged. 4 Americans wounded.
0 Americans killed. But the number that matters most isn't a weapon spec or a dollar amount.
It's 2. 2 Americans went down in enemy territory, and 2 Americans came home. Subscribe, hit the bell. What's coming next will change everything. And to everyone who ever wore the uniform, we see you, we stand with you, and we will never leave anyone behind.